step, I just want to like reiterate the three keys on the spiritual path. And you could see these three keys as yang, yin, and neutral, as three aspects of the life force. Okay. Or you could see them as masculine, feminine, and the ultimate feminine, the divine mother, which is really neutral, which is holding everything. So you could see it that way as well. Okay. So what are these three fundamental principles? I call them the quintessential principles. If you're on a path, on a spiritual path, if you're a beginner, or even if you've been on it for a long time, and this is what I've sort of narrowed it down to. Okay. So it's masculine, feminine, and neutral, or you could say, yang, yin, and neutral. Okay. Three aspects of the life force. So the yang aspect, making sure that your core beliefs are in alignment with spiritual truths. Okay. Number one. That's the number one. That's the use of the masculine, the right masculine use of your mind, right? The mind is like the masculine aspect of our embodiment, if you like. How we use the mind, how we discriminate with it, how we use it depends on some level. It depends everything. It depends how we deal with our own emotions and everything, because, as you can see, we can always make up stories about our feelings with our mind, right? So the best use of the mind is to align beliefs. Remember, beliefs are the root of thinking. All right. So thinking isn't just some random thing. It comes out of belief. Okay. And the more you can unwind these core beliefs, the better. And you can start to align with beliefs that really are truths, are spiritual truths, right? Because if we have those sort of beliefs, we're going to be much more in alignment with how life actually is. Everyone follow? Now, we may not get evidence, especially in the beginning, initially, that those beliefs are true. Right? That's another story, okay? Because as you know, everything in the physical dimension moves very slowly. All right. So that means we can change our beliefs and have a very empowering belief, but our emotional body, our wounding body, our energy body is still putting out into the universe like a countermeasure to that, if you like. Okay. Like it's like pushing out there, it's all of this unconscious wounding that we tend to push down is oftentimes just being projected out and comes back to us reflected in the experiences of life. Okay. So number one, the right use of the masculine energy, the right use of the yang energy is to make sure that our mind is aligned with spiritual truths. And you can fine tune those, right? Based on your own needs, based on what resonates with you. You don't just take on any spiritual, there's so many great spiritual truths out there, right? But you want to find ones that really resonate with you. And here you can use the Gene Keys. You can use the Gene Keys profile to help you, especially looking at the pearl and looking at the that Gene Key there, right? So in my case, what opened up for me, but I have oppression there, right? It's 47th Gene Key. It's all about suffering and how human beings suffer, right? So what opened up for me was this knowing inside me in the cells that there's a necessity for suffering, and actually suffering is actually perfect. It doesn't mean we have to just accept it fully. No, we have to understand its higher purpose, which is to bring out our potential. Okay. All right. So that was the big core belief that woke up for me. And it's one of the core beliefs now that I use to run my life, right? That there's no such thing as suffering just for the sake of suffering. Just like random suffering, right? And I had that belief for a long, long time, that it was sort of random. It was unconscious. It was sort of random, and some people had a better life than others because of it, But I don't have that anymore, right? So that's what opened up in me. Okay. And every one of you will actually have to use your own life experience and your own your own feedback mechanism from life to really uncover some of these core beliefs, right? So that's number one. That's the first principle. Okay. Second principle, we covered it last time, is being able to nurture the wounds, right? To take responsibility for them and to nurture them and to not allow them to engage the mental body. We have to like feel them. We have to acknowledge that we have them. And then we have to parent them. So it's like a nurturing and a parenting of them, right? So you can't do just the core beliefs. You've got to do simultaneously the support of the feeling body, what I call the wounded body. You know, the number one wound is separation, the fact that we come down into this dense experience of matter, and we're like, well, what the hell? I seem to remember that life was not like this before, and somehow or other I'm in this world where there's all this suffering and pain and war and all the things of the physical dimension, right? So that's the number one wound. And you know, I've talked a lot about the reason why humanity feels that, but the rest of nature doesn't, right? And this is why the sixth line keynote is nature, right? So yeah. All right. So nature doesn't feel separate. Even animals don't feel separate from life. It's only human consciousness that feels that separation. So it's very important to distinguish these two things, all right? So that means if we feel separate, and because of that separation is causing all of the wounds, like guilt, like denial, like repression, like rejection. That's all coming because we feel separate. Okay. So we have to learn how to nurture that, how to acknowledge that, right? It's like just think about parents, right? Like the father is goal focused, right? And the mother is like nurturing the child, right? I mean, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but it's very similar to what we have to do for ourselves. We have to have the most enhanced use of the masculine mind. And the way we do that is by focusing on our core beliefs. We have to make sure our core beliefs are in alignment with spiritual truth, right? And then, of course, you know, this is what happens on the spiritual path, by the way. When people come on the spiritual path, they meet these amazing teachings, right? They meet the spiritual truth. And then those spiritual truths hit up against the wounding in your emotional body. And that's why you get this push-pull. I want to evolve. Oh no, it's too much. I'm going back. And you have this back and forth, right? Back and forth, right? Oh, yeah, I know where I'm going. No, it's painful. And so you get this. That's what happens on a spiritual path. That is what happens. Okay. Anyone disagree with me about that? It's true, right? You can feel in your own experience. That's what happens, right? So if that's what happens, let's use that in an intelligent way rather than being unconsciously run by it. Everyone follow me there? We have to use it. If we understand that's what's happening, this, by the way, was the role of the guru traditionally, was to keep you on track. That was the role. Okay. That was the role. But we're not in the age of gurus anymore. We're not. We're just not. That's not. Plus, not many of us are blessed enough to have an enlightened being in our life, you know, just keeping us on track, right? Right. So you know, the new gurus are like spiritual teachings, like Richard Rudd's The Gene Keys, or evolutionary astrology from Jeffrey Wolf Green, or you know, one of the 10,000 spiritual paths that are available on the spiritual marketplace in our internet world, right? And I live in the spiritual supermarket. I live in a place called Ubud in Bali. And oh my God, everyone knows everything about everything here. You know, it's like So much fun. I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I'm so focused on alchemy and my path, and it's like I'm not an expert in all these other things, I'm just very focused, right? So but it's amazing, I meet a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and they know everything about everything. They know a little bit about Reiki, they know a little bit about Qigong, they know a little bit about yoga, Kundalini yoga, Tantra, Zen Buddhism, you name it. They like got a they got this degree and all these different spiritual paths, it's amazing, it's so amazing. I think it's my destiny. I have a third line pearl, so I'm going to meet all this diversity. Yeah. Okay, so we have the first one, right? Right use of the yang energy, right use of our mind. Second one is the right use of the nurturing principle, right? So I've used this analogy before. If a child has a nightmare and the mother is really aware and conscious, when the child says, "Oh my God, mommy, I saw a big monster," if the mother's really conscious and aware, what's she going to do? She's going to say, "Oh, that must have been so scary. Let me give you a hug. Let me love you." Right? And then the child feels validated, right? And in the morning, the child, the whole story is the whole nightmare has been forgotten because it's been validated. So that is the role of the feminine principle, to validate the wounds. That is your inner feminine's job. In the same way, it's the inner masculine's job to align with the highest possible spiritual truths. Everyone got those first two? Okay, here's the third one, and probably the most important. And this is related to grace. It's related to the Uwanchi. It's related to the ground of being. Every one of us has to develop gratitude, like sincere gratitude for our life, for all the blessings in our life, and for all the challenges, right? With a deep knowing that those are there to bring out our potential. So it's an incredible shift when you can shift into that, right? And you can't fake it, right? So what I suggest you do initially when you're first starting out is you just focus on gratitude for what's already present, right? So you focus on the fact that you can breathe, think about this, all right? Think about this. You're underwater, you can't breathe. And someone says to you, "Hey, what would you rather have, a breath of air or $1 billion?" What are you going to say? Breath of air, right? There's nothing like that wakes you up to what's truly valuable, right? And often what's really valuable in our life is not so concrete. It's often the more subtle things in our life that are much more valuable, right? Like our health, right? We only realize how amazing it is when we lose it, right? So you really have to get in the habit of developing gratitude for everything that you currently have in your life and make it conscious. Make it conscious. Make it actually a conscious prayer you do every single day. As you start to initiate the other two, the masculine principle of very core beliefs that are aligned with spiritual truth, and you start nurturing your wound, you're going to start to have breakthroughs, and you're going to start to see the perfection of your life up to now. You're going to start to see an immense intelligence in it that you cannot imagine initially when you take it very personally at the personal level. But there is an intelligence in it, incredible intelligence in it. And then that gratitude, it starts to go deeper. You start to realize, there's a reason why this happened like this. And like you start to see the intelligence in it, right? That is a process. That took me a long time for that to start to wake up in me. Okay. So I'm not suggesting that that will happen for all of you. It took time for that to wake up in me, I'm just hoping that when I teach, and I teach these principles, and that it doesn't have to take so long for you. That's my sincere wish and intention with the trainings that I do. So those are the three principles. And basically we covered them last Sunday, but I'm just bringing them down into core quintessence type of, I think those three things should be taught to anyone when they first start a spiritual path.